What is an ACL injury and how do they occur?
So an ACL injury is a problem at the knee joint essentially. The femur, which is the bone of the thigh, connects to one of the bones of the lower limb or the lower leg, known as the tibia. And basically we've got this strong fibrous connective tissue essentially keeping the femur and the tibia where they ought to be. When an injury occurs, essentially that ligament snaps, and certainly if we're talking about a rupture, that means the ligament at some point from its attachment from the femur to the tibia has snapped somewhere or become completely displaced from the bone. There are different kinds of injuries, but essentially if someone refers to an ACL injury, it's a problem with that anterior cruciate ligament, which is there basically to prevent kind of unwanted movement at the knee joint.
Pro have recently reported that increased workload, travel and insufficient rest contributed to higher injury rates. Typically, girls have not been exposed to the same elite level of training as early as boys and have not built up to the same capacity or base level of strength and endurance, which increases vulnerability. If ACL was to occur within a woman or a male, is there a difference in timescales for them?
As far as I'm aware, there's nothing definitive that says, males should have a recovery of this duration, females of that duration. I think more generally, how long it takes is dependent upon the individual. If we're kind of pondering, professional football, it does just tend to be the case that the recovery, that is the time from the injury through to playing once more competitive games, is anywhere between about 9 to 12 months. And more recent recommendations suggest it should probably be more so nearer the 12 months rather than the 9. So even at 9 months, there are still typically quite significant deficits in things that sports scientists and sports medics might measure, like strength and range of motion.
Just over 12 months, the Women's Super League lost and thankfully regained Arsenal trio Leah Williamson, Beth Mead and Vivian Miedemar. While Chelsea's Sam Kerr has had her season cruelly ended in January, another high-profile player whose absence from the league will be truly felt. Or within the last 2 years, there's been 23 players suffer with an ACL injury in the WSL. Do you think there's a reason for that generally?
Yes, although I think current explanations might need a bit more development. It definitely is the case that the rates and prevalence and incidence of ACL injuries in professional football are higher in female context, and I think the kind of values that are frequently cited would say that the female rate is about 3 to 6 times higher than the male rate, and that's been quite persistent for about 20 years. If you go back to research, in the kind of 1990s, it was somewhere in that ballpark of 3 to 6 times the risk, and that is still the case now, despite the fact that there's increasing attention, I guess.
Women's players are up to 8 times more likely to be struck by an ACL injury than men. Because of this, as many as 37 players are thought to have missed last year's World Cup alone. The now retired 2019 Ballon d'Or winner Megan Rapinoe suffered 3 ACL injuries throughout her career. Former Chelsea player and England international Claire Rafferty has had 2, and as many players that are currently out of action, including England international Gabby George.
Step up, Blues, step up!
On again.
Hi, I'm joined today by Maddie, Chester women's defender. So Maddie, when you went through your injury, obviously the ACL,
yeah.
What was the hardest part for you?
The outlet of football, I'd probably say.
Yeah.
Having the structure of football, training in the week, having the outlet, because I was going through school at the time, so exams and stuff, so the outlet was just...
Yeah, it's obviously, it's difficult for mentally as well, because obviously being restricted for myself, walking was the most difficult part, I suppose.
Yeah.
Be the same for yourself?
Yeah, especially the first stages, first 6 weeks, you've got the brace on, crutches. It's not great.
It's long.
But yeah, you've just got to get through that first 6 weeks.
Aren't an easy fix. There needs to be multiple years of research to understand and gain a possible solution so women in the future can play without a thought of a potential ACL. The work has started, but more needs to be done for the future of women playing football.